Death rate of drug overdose right now is staggering. There are 100,306 deaths from drug overdose in 2021. That is more people that died than Americans dying in the Vietnam War, the Korean War, the Revolutionary War, the Iraq War, the War of 1812, the war in Afghanistan, and the Mexican-American War combined. We've had close to 1 million overdose deaths in the United States from 1999 up until today, which is close to the same amount of Americans who have died in all wars of the United States history. It's hard to wrap my brain around. Today I am bringing on our show a father who lost his daughter on May 3rd of 2002. Now, losing a child seems almost about the worst thing that can happen, especially when it's preventable. The pain that the families endure, that is the worst part about this. Now, I want you to listen to the eulogy that I'm going to read that was given by Chip Heptig, who's the father. Some children remind us of flowers or stars. Some children remind us of sunlight, wind, trees, or rain. My daughter Chelsea was a meteor, white hot, streaking, burning, and crashing into our lives, demanding our attention. Her spirit popped out indignant, somehow angry at the restraints placed on her by being human. I used to take her food shopping, and the stories of her escapades in ShopRite are, to this day, legend. Her tantrums were awe-inspiring. I once told this little 2-year-old that she'd better settle down or she'd be in timeout when we got home. She looked at me with that patented Chelsea scowl and said, "You getting on my nerves," a phrase she'd obviously heard once or twice. For a while, we lived in a small townhouse in Lakewood. There was a period of time when every single chair in the house laid on its side. At 2 years old, Chell would drag any standing chair she could find anywhere to climb on anything she damn well pleased. I once found her on top of the refrigerator. I once took her out of the high chair, set her on the ground, and turned to shut off the water in the sink. In the space of literally 25 seconds, she had waddled out of the kitchen, down the hall, up the stairs, and was sitting in the bathroom sink. When she set her mind to something, even at that age, God help you if you got in her way. With Chell, you were either on the train or on the track. Chelsea's liabilities, like every single one of us, were of course her greatest assets. I often said that if she survived, her tenacity would make her a world beater. She had a huge heart and loved her family and friends with that same feverish intensity that led us to call her the Chellinator. She loved missions, and I often referred to her as my guided missile. If it was a task she accepted, she wouldn't stop until the job was done right. She was, to the end, perhaps the most fiercely loyal person I've ever known. There's a tradition among some of us. We throw pies at each other. Hard to comprehend, I know, but trust me, it's an act of love. The first time I hit Michael with a pie, we were all uncles, cousins, and friends standing around laughing, save one. 4-year-old Chelsea was furious with me. She ran up and kicked me in the shin and yelled, "That's my brother." She was one who you absolutely had to have on your team. And if she wasn't on your team, trust me, you didn't want to be in the game. Those of you who are close to me know of my deep spiritual commitment. I try to live my life literally as a prayer, and for the past 25 years, my prayer has been the same. Help me to open my heart. Help me to learn the blessing of forgiveness. Help me to learn unconditional love. In my belief system, there are no mistakes, just endless opportunities for forgiveness and healing. And therefore, the people in my life who push my buttons, who frustrate me, who sometimes infuriate me, are my best teachers. Chelsea was, is now, and will continue to be the most revered and greatest teacher in my life. And in typical Chelsea fashion, she has answered my prayers to open my heart. Full frontal assault and take no prisoners. My wife and I love going to the movies. We critique the films later, and it's a running gag between us that no matter how sad or cathartic a movie appears to be, my comment is often, at least it was ultimately redemptive. And I feel deeply that this unbearably tragic, grief-laden moment must also be ultimately redemptive. 2 nights ago, our friend Kathy Chestnut came over to visit. Kathy, Bill, James, and Ian lost their son and brother Nick 2.5 years ago. When Kathy came in, I asked her how long it had been since Nick had died, and she told me. I looked her in the eyes and said, 2.5 years, and you're still alive. You're my hero. She laughed a little, and then looked deeply into my eyes and said, you can choose to live, or you can choose to die. It's your choice. And I made the choice to live and let every one of my actions honor Nick's life. So that's my redemption. I choose to live and honor Chelsea's life with mine. Someone once said, if you had 24 hours to live, who would you call? What would you say? And what are you waiting for? I'm not waiting. I'm going to continue to tell my friends and family that I love them whenever I can. I'm going to keep hugging Michael. I'm going to keep praying. And I'm going to try to remember that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. The light is right here and right now. She is not gone. She has only changed. I guess I just have to learn to listen harder. I love you, Chel. Let the healing begin. Now I want everybody to stay tuned so you can meet this man who is very happy to tell her story. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
Trapped in a dream, archaic nightmare, taunted by lies, climbing Everest without a rope, light without a meaning, week without a day.
Those that abuse substances many times think they're just harming themselves, but the reality is that the harm goes way beyond you. Anybody that loves you is going to struggle. Now, especially if you end up passing away, the harm, the hurt, the pain that you're going to cause your family can be unbearable. I'm going to start by reading a letter that was written by Chip Heptig on May 3rd, 2008, which is 6 years after the passing of his daughter. Welcome, visitors. On April 25th, 2002, I was awakened by the doorbell at 4 a.m. Any parent knows that nothing good comes from a doorbell at 4 a.m., ever. It was the Brick Police. They came by to let me know that our daughter, Chelsea, had been found in a gas station parking lot in Elizabeth, New Jersey, not breathing. Someone had called 911. She had been taken to the hospital and placed on a respirator. She had accidentally overdosed on heroin and ecstasy. 8 days later, she died in ICU. She never regained consciousness. She passed away in the arms of her mother, Debbie, her brother Michael, and me, her dad. 2,160 days have gone by, and we still struggle every day. Our lives have gone on. That didn't seem possible at first. But one of the first major lessons I learned about tragedy and grief was that the world keeps spinning, no matter what. So our lives have gone on. I like to think that Chelsea can still hear me. I talk to her all the time. I like to think that she wishes this never happened. that she feels this was all a terrible and stupid mistake. But I'll never know for sure in this lifetime if she hears me or feels anything. So my life goes on. Another huge lesson I've learned is that we are not alone. People lose loved ones all the time, and parents lose children far too often. On this 6th anniversary of our beloved Chelsea Marie's death, I ask, plead, beg all you lovely, impetuous, impulsive, and irresponsible sons and daughters to listen. You are loved and cherished more than you can possibly imagine. Your parents, siblings, and friends need you in their lives. Listen. Your body is not immortal. Your body is not invulnerable. Please don't do anything irrevocably stupid. Try to celebrate life without risking it. Ask for help if you are depressed. Sometimes we're blind and deaf. Take care of your friends. If they can't or won't ask for help, then maybe it's up to you to ask for them. Drive carefully. You're operating a lethal weapon. If the driver of the car you're in is acting like an idiot, don't be afraid to get out of the car. We'll come get you. The list goes on and on. I'm sure there are bereft parents out there who would like to add words of advice. The bottom line is this: if you leave us, our hearts will be broken for the rest of our lives. Please grow old with us. We love you madly. I'm Eric McCoy, and this is High While Clean. I want to remind everybody to help support the show if you can. When I say, support, I'm not specifically saying money, but again, subscribing, clicking our links on our website. Anybody, I want to mention this, can create a profile on our website because we are continuing to develop those networks that can provide education, insight, references, and resources. Since our topic falls well into helping what has become what I believe to be one of the top preventable deaths in our country. We know people will continue to die, but maybe we can make a difference. And that's sort of what we're looking at. And our show is into our 3rd year. And I want to thank all of our listeners and our supporters. We wouldn't be where we are today without your assistance. And I was recently looking online and I came across stories of overdoses that led to death. Chelsea Marie Heptig, her story goes back to May 3rd of 2002. So we're coming up on 20 years. And my purpose has been to fight the stigma of substance abuse so that we can remove the misinformation and the hatred towards drug abusers and mental illness. And the second purpose is what I actually want to do today. And I've wanted to start another show specific to this topic, but due to time and money, it would actually take to create another entire show. I'm going to start by incorporating these into High While Clean until I can pull off the other one. But I want to title that show, when I get that going, Voice to Those That We Have Lost. And I don't want to forget our victims of this so-called never-ending war. And my guest today is Chip Heptig. He is the father who is going to provide the voice to a beautiful young woman who died way too young. We can't forget her story and the lessons that she can teach us. And dying in vain is only possible when there is nothing that we can learn. And I don't think that has to happen. And we can actually provide a story on the internet that could possibly remain long after we are gone. And I want to thank you, Chip, for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I read some information about your daughter, and from what I could see, she combined MDMA and heroin. Is that correct?
Yes, that is exactly what happened.
And how long had she been using?
She had a unique to our story. She was not an addictive person. She had anger management issues, and she had impulse control issues, and she had a lot of stuff going on. But she was basically a rebellious teen. And, she went through a period where bulimia was the thing that was going to, drag her down. And then she went through a thing with cocaine. Then she went through a thing with alcohol. Then she decided that heroin was her gig. And And, it was really more of an impulsive thing. She never got in any kind of situation where, she was breaking, stealing money to get drugs to do a fix. This was just, I'm going to do my thing and everybody's doing it. And this is great. I'm going to do this. The heck with the rest of you.
Yeah. Had she been in treatment before, or did she?
Yeah, she was in treatment, which is like a really interesting and hard story. When your child is in need, when they're 13 and 14, a lot of people want to help. 15, it starts to get a little bit less of the people that want to help, because at that point, we're getting close to the 16, 17, 18 thing. So she was a multiple presenter. So she was in therapy for the bulimia. She was in therapy for the anger management. She was, we had a contract with her therapist about just a general contract that, if you don't come home for curfew, we're going to, take away this and take away that. And she had to sign it. We had to sign it. So we went through a lot of different possible. She was in an outpatient experience for a while. We tried a lot of different things, regrettably, like now that she's gone, I wish, well, geez, if I'd only done this, or I've only done that, or if we sent her away to boot camp, or a lot, but hey, 2020 hindsight.
Yeah. Well, that's all the woulda, coulda, shouldas,
Right.
And the reality, and I work in the, substance abuse field. I do teaching for people working to become substance abuse counselors. I've been in almost 20 years. I've been in the industry, and, I've worked with a lot of parents that, obviously have lost their kids, that have gone through treatment and dealt with that. And, in reality being, there's really nothing obviously we can do, you could do,
right.
To change her or get her to make the decisions that you would want her to make. And so I'm assuming you held a lot of guilt.
Yeah. That's a great question. Yes, there was a lot of guilt involved. It's been 20 years. So, I spent at least 10 years in therapy myself after she died, just trying to be, a better human being, and, and be better at grieving. If that sounds strange, but, I wanted to be a healthy griever. Mm-hmm. I was a school teacher. I was an elementary school teacher. I love children. I have a son and 2 stepchildren that I just, that are just so close to me. So I wanted to do it correctly. So I got into a lot of therapy, but there was a lot of guilt. There still is a lot of guilt. I mean, a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
I got to say, though, that, I just want to put it out there. My daughter, I'm a very spiritually inclined human being, and I've spent a lot of time meditating, a lot of time praying, a lot of time, traveling and studying with different teachers. And I have to say that in the last 20 years, well, for the rest of my life, my greatest teacher ever is my daughter. She was then, and she is now, and she will be till I die. Yeah. I learn something every single day from her.
Yeah.
Patience, so much more patience than this is strange, but she made me a better parent, a better teacher, a better father, a better brother. She made me a better human being. She makes me a better human being.
Yeah. You have other kids, or?
Yeah, I do. I have a son from Chel's mom, and I have 2 stepchildren from my current wife. So I have a total of 4 children, 3 living and 1 dead.
Now, here's a question I have for you. Were you married to the mother of her when she passed away?
No, great question. It was, we were married for a total of 13 years. We were completely separated, and on our way to divorce when Chelsea died. We had been separated for, I think we were separated since the time Chelsea was 10, so for 8 years. And I was married to my current wife when Chelsea died.
Yeah. That's the message for, the people that I use that abuse drugs and substances is to think about the parents. Obviously that's a huge thing, because
Huge.
I've seen, marriages dissolve because of their child passing away.
Oh yeah. I mean, the statistics, I'm sure you studied it, are terrible. When a couple loses a child, the divorce rate just skyrockets.
Yeah. Everybody blames each other.
Right. And a lot of recriminations going on, and a lot of just such sadness and grief and blame. That was not our particular situation, but I've seen it. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, I now have a very unique skill set. A conscious human being who has been through the ringer of losing a child. So I've been called on a lot to talk to people who lose their children.
Yeah.
Go talk to Chip.
Yeah. Yeah. And doing those things is actually a great healing process.
Right. Absolutely.
One of my dear friends, and she is, and I bring her up on my show all the time, Jody Barber. Jody Barber lost her son in 2010. He was 19 years old. He died on their couch at home. And she became a huge advocate. She created 2 documentaries, one called Overtaken and then Overtaken 2. Her big fight was the overprescribing of medications by doctors, because that was something that sort of led in his direction. But that is the stuff that I love. I mean, I really do. And I think about it. I tell Jody this all the time, that, her son has saved thousands of lives.
Yep.
And we question all the time, like, why did this happen? Why did, and then, some people, oh God, why did you take my child?
Yeah.
And we don't know the answer. I don't think we ever will, but we can always flip it around a little bit and look at it in a different light, that there is a purpose here. And, just the fact that, you put your hand out, people reach out to you, and so there is a positive that we could say resulted from this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As I educate, I do a lot of education on substance abuse, and there was a period of time, with ecstasy, where it was being cut with something different.
Right.
And I don't know if you kind of know about, but of course, and then when you're combining, MDMA and also heroin, and this is such a great educational thing, is that, we have enzymes. One of them is called cytochrome P450, which is actually one of the things that metabolizes drugs in us, including MDMA, but it's also the same one that does with heroin. And when you combine them, your body can't properly metabolize them. And this means that the MDMA concentration can actually increase to cause that toxicity, raising the chance for overdose, obviously the harmful side effects. And did she went into a coma? Was that
right? She got into a fight with her boyfriend, and she got a quote friend to take her to Newark, and she had already taken the MDMA, the ecstasy, and then she decided that she needed heroin. She wasn't like a continuous user, but she had dabbled frequently. And so she went up and, snorted some heroin in a gas station parking lot in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and basically seized up and died, or at least stopped breathing. The guy had the wherewithal to call the police. They brought her to Trinitas Hospital in Elizabeth, and then she seized, and they gave her a lot of Ativan, and she never woke up. It was a week.
Yeah. Do you think there was it was like a heroin overdose, or do you think it was toxicity of the MDMA? It's a combination.
I think it was a combination, but while they were going through it, they kept talking about amphetamines and how it was like, it wasn't the heroin. I mean, the policeman that helped us was very helpful. And in the beginning, he was like, "Oh, she's coming back from this. I've seen it 1,000 times."
Yeah.
With the whole, oxy thing and the heroin thing, the Narcan, and it's like, they look like they're dead and then they come back. But the combination of the two, it was just not happening.
Yeah.
It was really hard to tell, what was the culminating thing, but he never woke up.
Yeah. MDMA is, obviously has methamphetamines,
Right.
that are within it. But yeah, that was the thing that started happening. And I want to say it was probably around that time, 2000, early 2000s, that there was actually a substance that was called, I think it was like methoxyamphetamine, or PMA, I think is what it was, that started to be found that was in the MDMA. And again, it kind of just goes back to when we take substances, we really don't know what we're taking.
We have no idea. We have no idea.
And that's what's scary. And that's what's happening, like fentanyl. But yeah, with that PMA, it basically contaminated, what people thought were MDMA. And the reasoning being, and actually this is really what we're seeing happening, is because, every time the federal government, puts more control on a substance, it becomes harder to get. And so once they do that, then there has to be an alternative that people have to make. And sometimes, sadly, it becomes more harmful.
Right.
And so that PMA was actually easier to get than the precursor to MDMA.
Which is, sort of a foreshadowing of the whole fentanyl thing now. I mean, you have a clue what has fentanyl in it. And somebody's telling you a white powder is something. How would you possibly know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're finding it in meth. They're finding it in weed.
Right. I know. I
mean, that's crazy. And I'm absolutely convinced. I did a show. I just kind of did it myself on it, but I was talking about fentanyl, and one of the analogs of fentanyl is carfentanil, and carfentanil is actually 10,000 times more powerful than morphine. So it's actually used for, large animals like elephants and, things in that realm. And I'm absolutely convinced that, if anybody puts carfentanil in drugs, they want you dead. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, because you're going to die. I don't care how much of a tolerance that you have to opiates.
Right.
Carfentanil, the lethal dose, you can't even really see with the naked eye. And I almost look at like terrorist attacks,
Right. I mean, they've talked about, like I read stories all the time about policemen that are accidentally overcome by just being near the fentanyl. Yeah. It's so powerful. And then what you're talking about is another whole level.
Yeah.
It's just staggering.
Yeah.
Staggering.
It's horrible. So, okay. So she passed away May, right, of 2002, May 3rd?
May 3rd, 2002.
And so I wanted to ask you, and I was kind of saying this before we got started here, but, one of the important things that, I always think about is, you've got experience in this, and, you kind of said people contact you, and how did you deal with this? What was your path? I mean, I know you went to therapy, but, therapy is very short-lived hour-long meeting.
Right.
And then obviously you leave, and then that's when the real therapy begins, is actually when you leave.
Right. No, I how did I deal? You know what? It was basically, one breath at a time. While Chelsea was in the hospital, it took a week for her to die. So I made an appointment with her therapist before she died, saying, "Look, Lisa, I have to somehow live through this. I have children. I have a job. I have to do this. I don't want to do this in an unhealthy way. I know I can blah, blah, blah." And so I signed up with her, with my daughter's therapist, in the idea that, well, she already knows the backstory. She knows my daughter really well. Mm-hmm. Will she help me through this? So I had therapy with her for a year, and that was very helpful. It was once a week. But yeah, I mean, there's no getting around it. I have to say that, my family was incredibly helpful. My wife was just a saint. My job, I was a school teacher in a really nice school district, Long Branch, New Jersey. And my principal and the staff were incredibly helpful. And I just, sucked it up and did it one day at a time. I mean, there were definitely days where I went to work and walked in the door and walked out.
Yeah.
Got there 5 minutes later and walked into my classroom and burst into tears and just like walked out the door.
Yeah.
I took some time off at the end of the year and I went on like a grief tour. I went and drove around and saw every one of my family members, in a stayed at their house for 2 or 3 days. My son and my stepson spent one semester in New Zealand, and I took 2 weeks off and just went to go see them in New Zealand. So I tried to take care of myself, and I tried to continue, doing my job. Yeah. Luckily, I had, my job was being with children, so that was helpful because I love children, and I felt that it was almost as if I could take the grief and, kind of put it in a box right in front of the school and go in and be with my kids and then come back out and open the box and get the stuff and go home,
Yeah. Now I'm going to read the eulogy by Debbie, and this is her mother. To my dearest little girl, Chelsea Marie, you entered my world blazing your trail, and most of the time I was running to catch up to you. Everyone who met you remembers your energy. You brought so much color to this world. There's so many stories that come up for me now. They keep me going. From playing at Turkey Swamp Park to cheerleading, I remember you got angry with me for cheering too loudly on the sidelines. Oh, the times I embarrassed you. Our painting class, sleepovers at museums, brownies, tap dancing. And remember those slipless slippers you invented after seeing me fall on the ice driveway to get the newspaper? Remember the night you cooked a lovely chicken dinner for me? I said that it was the best chicken I ever had, and in all honesty, told me that you decided not to burn it like I did. Honesty, you always spoke yours. Chelsea, you taught me so many lessons in this life. Be honest, tell your truth, love many different people, and don't be afraid. I remember when you were just 7 and a boy was visiting his grandmother in our neighborhood. He had birth defects. One was blindness. None of the other kids talked to him. But you, within an hour, you were best friends, and you invited him over for dinner. You reached out to everyone, and oh, how you loved and cared for your cat. He had 17 years with you too. I promised to take good care of him for you. I thank God for these 17 years, from the yelling, crying, hugging, loving, laughing. All of it has been my path with you, and I have no regrets. I thank you for choosing me to walk your journey as your mother. It has been my honor. We were so close these past 2 years, going shopping, cooking, playing games, going to the beach or out to dinner. Not a day went by that you did not tell me you loved me, and that I loved you. I have all the cards you gave me just to say thanks for never giving up. We never gave up on each other, did we? Chelsea, thank you for the privilege of being your mother, for being the one you trusted to handle traveling this life with you, for having the faith in me to be strong enough to allow you to leave. I am a better, fuller person for having known you. You are teaching me now to love unconditionally. Don't hold on to anger. Life is short. You will be teaching me the rest of my life and beyond. I know that you know how deeply I love you, and I know you love me with all of your heart. We are still holding each other as we walk forward. You are my angel in heaven. I am your angel on earth. I wrote a book called Pain, Failure, and Misery Are the Stepping Stones to Success. Kind of based on, my life. I was a very intense methamphetamine addict for many years. And I actually wrote a chapter in there that was kind of for families, because, obviously we do see this thing a lot. And going back to what you were saying, you were kind of blaming yourself a little bit. One of the things that I talk about in there is, the premise of, did you ever go to Al-Anon?
No, I am, I'm not really big on the whole AA thing. I they have great success, and I have great respect for them. But I took a different path.
Yeah, and I did too. And I'm not actually. I never really was a huge fan. I did do the 12 steps, but I kind of moved on.
Right.
And they talk about this idea of detachment. And detachment in the Al-Anon program is sort of a, even while the person's alive, they're abusing drugs and substances, because it can be just as challenging, for the person that doesn't even know where their kid is, they're even being alive, and they're out there on the streets, and you don't know if they're alive or dead, just waiting on the police to show up, and and that kind
definitely.
Of thing. And so they talk about this detachment, like being able to kind of separate yourself and remind yourself again that, you have no power over her. Zero.
Right.
My wife and I used to do this radio show in LA. It was on, it's called LA Talk Radio. And that was one of the things that we talked about one day, because we went through this situation with her son. He thank God didn't pass away, but he was heavily on heroin, and, it was that similar thing, have no idea where he is. And then she always wanting to help him, continually going back and forth, help him, put him in this place, and then he leaves, and put him in here, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
And you get to a point, and what I always tell people is you got to get to a point where you got to stop,
Right.
Because in a sense, it's almost better to distance yourself, so that way you don't say you killed them, because
right. No, I hear you 100%. I do. Like having gone through it, though, you get to a certain point we never got to a point where we had her in and out of institutions.
Yeah.
But there was a point there where, it got to, you lock your door, you not let your child in when it's raining. I don't know.
It's tough.
It's beyond tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot like turn my back on my daughter when she's sobbing and soaking wet on the front steps.
Yeah.
But I hear you, like there definitely were times where threats were made, but
yeah, it's Jody kind of says, Jody says that too, in the sense that, and I had another lady on the show, her son actually committed suicide. He was, real hardcore alcoholic, and then he ended up going that route. But yeah, that's the difficulty. How do you, and she was kind of like, you really don't turn your back on them, but you do got to figure out a way to give them enough pain to want to do something different.
Right. Well, I know. I am ACOA, and my father was ACOA. My grandfather was an alcoholic. My father was an alcoholic. My brother is an alcoholic. Alcoholism runs in the family. So, I've all the gamut from, I'm smoking too much marijuana to, I'm leaving you because you drink too much. And all in between. I get it. So many different ways, so many different approaches, so many different interventions. I cannot count that. I'm sure you have a list as well of interventions you were the center of, and interventions that you helped.
Yeah.
And it all gets down to what you said earlier. You know what? We can't do it for them.
No. And honestly, it's one of those things that I don't really know if there's no perfect solution to any of it. Dr. Drew had said something to me one time, right? And he said, he literally asked that question, so what's the solution to this problem? Right. And I was thinking, like, there really isn't one, because you're dealing with different people. Everybody's unique. People learn differently. People experience different things. People have different life experiences, and that's why I would say, what you did and everything you did, I don't think you should blame yourself for anything, because I am guarantee you look like a loving father, a caring father, somebody that would have done anything for her.
Anything.
And I don't think that I can't say that you did anything wrong, you know?
Yeah. You know, I mean, the one thing that I did wrong was I did not manage to keep my daughter alive. I mean, my job as a father ultimately
But you couldn't
is
do
to
that.
keep them alive. Right. I mean, that's my job.
But you got to remember, you can't make choices for her, though.
Well, I understand. I totally understand. And I get all that. I know they get out there. Once they get their license, they're on their own, basically, you know, they're out in the world. You can't follow them around, but ultimately, like, you know, I accept responsibility for the fact that I failed. I'm not going to beat myself over guilt about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is what it is. It happened. There's things I could have done. There's things I should have done. But all that is just like, you know, mental torture.
Yeah.
I get it. But I failed. You know, what am I going to do?
We're going to agree to disagree.
Right. Okay. Right. No, I got it. But, you know, so in my failure, my take is then I got to grow. I mean, okay, so I messed up. So now I have 8 grandchildren.
Yep.
I have 3 loving sons. I have a daughter who died 20 years ago who teaches me stuff every single day. I mean,
there you go.
I mean, you know what? I mean, it sounds bizarre, and I'm sure you must have thought of this, but if right now a genie came up to me and said, "Do you want your daughter back? But if you get your daughter back, you got to go back to when she was alive." I don't think I could do it. I have 8 grandchildren. You know, if you were going to say, like, you know, change it back and have her be alive, does that mean I don't get my grandchildren? Does that mean my son doesn't marry his wife? Does that mean, you know, there's so many things, life goes on and things change. So,
yeah. You know what? It's interesting you say that, because I even think about that with my life. You know, people are like, you know, if I had all the knowledge and all the experience and everything that I did, and I could go back in time and do things differently, I wouldn't do a thing differently.
I can't.
No.
I cannot, because of what I have now is so incredible and so precious to me. I mean, I got to tell you, though, I mean, like, you know, this already happened to me. So, you know, I'm a little bit more, you know, clingy to my people.
Yeah.
You know, I realize how ephemeral the whole experience is. And I try to go through every single second of my life saying it may not be here next tomorrow. Live it right now and tell people if you love them, tell them you love them.
Yep.
You know, that one, I'm sure you heard that old quote, you know, if you had one day to live, who would you call? What would you say to them? And what are you waiting for?
Yep.
Right. I mean,
yeah. I mean, we don't know. We don't know if there is a tomorrow.
Right. We don't know. We don't know.
So that's why we enjoy the moment.
Well, in a healthy way, hopefully.
Yep. That's the, I had, even the substance abuser, all the people that I work with, I mean, they have so much shame. They have so much guilt. They have all this stuff, from, things that they've done. And of course, some of them have had, enormous amounts of abuse they're dealing with from childhood and, all kinds of stuff. And, we talk a lot about that, the past is gone. We can't do anything about it. The future is nothing really but expectations. And really all we have is now,
Right.
I mean, we have to plan for the future. Hopefully there is one.
Yep.
And, but we plan for the future, but the only moment you're ever going to enjoy is right now.
Yep.
And right now. And, it's a thing, like all of your worries, all of your stresses, all of your anxiety have nothing to do with now.
Yep.
They have to
it's all past or future. I get it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books of all time, seminal work in my learning was Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. It says it all in 3 words.
Yeah.
Be here now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Reach out. Hug your child. Hug your family. Hug your parent. I want to read now the eulogy by Michael. And Michael is her brother. When I hear the name Chelsea, I think of the most trying, hard-headed, stubborn, caring, beautiful person whom I loved with every inch of my heart, body, and soul. She showed me how boundless the spectrum of love was. There were times when I wanted to grab her and shake her as hard as I could. And there were other times when I wanted to grab her, squeeze her, and never let her go. She was by far my greatest teacher and will, in all likelihood, continue to be for the rest of my life. Although these are difficult times, I feel we all must take something positive from this. We must believe in our hearts that she was just a caterpillar, and now she is a radiant butterfly. We all are wishing she was still here, but we must understand that she is now closer to us than she could have ever been before. We may not be able to touch her, but we can feel she is right here in all our hearts. The one thing I feel is most important to learn from this experience is that our seconds together are much too precious for any emotion other than love. There's no time or reason for us to hold our anger in our hearts. We must embrace each other and express our love every day because we know not what tomorrow brings. Please take nothing for granted. Let Chelsea teach us all that in our darkest hour, we must find light. I love you, Chel. Thank you for the 17 incredible years. And Jody said that I kind of put a quote on her in my book too. And I kind of asked her that question, like, how did you deal with this? You know, the loss of a child, you know, probably one of the most painful things you ever have to deal with, you know? And her statement was just really in line with, I've got another kid. I had to move on. You've got grandkids, you know, and so there, you have to sort of redirect that focus a little bit.
You have to. I have a son. I have 3 sons. I mean, you know, my son was 21 years old when this happened. So it was our 20 years old. So,
and she was how old again? How old was she?
She was 17 years, 11 months and 5 days, I think. She right before her high school graduation.
Yeah,
and he was a couple years older. So I think he was 21 or 22. So yeah, so it was for them. I had to keep moving on, you know.
Yeah.
Keep doing it and try to, like, you know, make it not happen for someone else.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah. And that absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, I live in LA County, and Orange County had just humongous amounts of deaths. You know, Jody actually does an overdose awareness thing every year that she holds this big event, and they have all these photos, you know, of all these young people, you know, that passed away all the way down to the age of 13. You know, 13. It's just, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
I remember when I was young, we started with beer. I mean,
yeah, no, I'm same thing. It was beer and, you know,
weed or something, you know. Now it's like now people are starting with heroin and, you know, just some of the craziest stuff.
Right. You know, ecstasy right out of the box. Hey, I got a couple hits. Let's go. You know, we're going to a party.
Yep. Huh. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's my hope, you know. My hope is, you know, to help save some lives, you know, but it doesn't have to be this way. It's, you know, let me ask you a question. And I asked Jody this one time. I want to ask you a question, and I don't know if you may not have an answer on this, but do you remember something that really sticks out in terms of maybe something she said that just, you know, like sometimes we have, you know, people in our life that, you know, like my grandmother, for instance, you know, passed away back in 99. And, you know, I always have this, like, you know, these memories of like statements that she would make, you know, that I sort of laugh about. Do you have anything that you can think of?
Well, she was 17 years old, so there weren't a lot of pithy quotes that, you know, we carry forward and everything. But I do remember, I guess, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but 6 months before she died, she basically just left she was living with her mother, and she left and was out. We couldn't find her. We drove around all night, and we like tried to find someone who had been with her, and we were all worried, sick about her. And so we were all sitting at the house at 4:00 in the morning. She just walks in and she's indignant because we were so upset. And I looked at her and I said, you know, honey, I love you so much. I'm afraid that you're going to die. I'm afraid that, you know, you're going to be dead. And she looked at me and she said, you know, that's the most fucked up thing you ever said to me.
Wow.
And I remember being like, yeah, I know, but I'm telling you the truth. Yeah. And so 6 months later, she, you know, there it was. So, you know, there were a lot of, like, there were as many beautiful moments as there were hard moments. Yeah. I mean, she was hard girl from the second she came out like a rocket. And she threw tantrums that were like legendary tantrums when she was 2 years old. Her anger was through the roof. And her son is like a, you know, bodhisattva. He's calm. My son, calm. He's a therapist now. He's, you know, magna cum laude, you know, scholar in high school, captain of the football team, raised by the same two people. It's just one of those things, you know, she came out angry. Yeah.
That goes back to people are different.
Right. Know? Totally different. I mean, she was raised by the same two people and that was her thing, you know? But, we love her to death. Yeah. We love her to death.
And I want to say that I want to say I see that, you know, I mean, you present that. And I think obviously she knew that, you know.
I hope so. You know, I want to believe, I believe that she knew we loved her with all her heart. And on some level, I know this is just ridiculous, but like on some level, I feel like if there was a being beyond this, she feels bad. She didn't mean for this to happen. It wasn't right. It was a mistake. It was an accident.
Yep. And that is the shitty part, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's like every choice that we make, you know, has consequences, everything. And you know, it can be that one choice. Just takes it all away.
One crazy choice. I mean, I talked to her that night, you know, and I just tell her, calm down. No, my boy had a fight with Mike and I'm going to go like, oh, it's okay, honey. Don't worry about it, you know? And then got that phone call 4:00 the next morning.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this. Here we are, 20 years later.
Yep.
Still and my son married, he became a school teacher, taken after me, and married someone he met in the school district whose name is Chelsea. Huh. And so now here we are 20 years later, and Chelsea Heptig is the mother of my 3 grandchildren.
Wow.
So, you know, there's some kind of weird cosmic symmetry in that.
It really
and I
is.
love her so much. She's the other Chelsea. Yeah. And I just like, oh God, she's just an amazing mother. My grandchildren are amazing. My wife is amazing.
Yeah. And she's your daughter-in-law.
And she's my daughter. She's my daughter-in-law. So it's like, it's just really kind of spectacular.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Wow. That's it's, you know, I'm, you know, it always makes me sad, you know, obviously with, you know, with anybody that dies of overdoses. And again, like I said, I mean, this is the worst part of it all is the families.
Right.
I mean, that's the worst part. You know, and you know, it is, it's really sad. But I am glad that you are moving on in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. One step in front of the other. Oh yeah. Just a little addendum there. Her brother decided that he needed to do more. So now he is a pediatric neuropsychologist.
Wow.
Dealing with troubled youth. And it all stems from like him just being, you know, the sister of a young woman that just had a really, really hard life. So, you know, the reverberations of her life will continue for all of our lives.
Yeah. It took that pain that he dealt with to do what he does.
Yeah.
That's great, man. That's really good. Hey, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate this.
I appreciate you as well, buddy. I really do. Like, it's one of those things about, being a parent of someone, that lost a child. People sometimes, tiptoe around and I don't ever bring it up. And I avoid questions like how many children you have. I mean, at some point I had to make a decision. How do you answer that question? So I always say just 4. I have 4 children.
Sure.
I don't get into the 3 alive, 1 dead, unless somebody really questions me on it. But
because the truth is, you still had 4 kids. So
right, I still have 4 children.
Yes, she's always going to be your daughter.
Right, she's always going to be my daughter. So it is what it is. But I'm an avid reader, so I mean, the second she died, I have like this bookshelf behind me has like 8 different books on grieving. Because that's what I figured. Well, I got to get good at it because I'm going to be doing it. So I've read a lot of stuff on it, done a lot of work with the therapy.
Yep. You learned about DABDA, right?
What?
DABDA? Denial,
DABDA.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance.
Oh, Kubler-Ross. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Kubler-Ross. Absolutely. She's the first one I bought.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't know the acronym, but
it was always just DABDA. It's got,
Right. No, I got it. And we're doing it every day. So
yeah, that's the thing. And I don't think, I don't think the grief fully ever goes away.
No,
I mean, it's you get to the acceptance, it's just that place of like, there's 2 fallacies with acceptance, is one that, if I, accept something, I have to be okay with it, which is not the truth, and the other side of it, and I do this with self-esteem. If I accept it, then I can't change it, is kind of the other one, but acceptance is the precondition to change. And, and acceptance really is just, and I think in terms of grief is just saying, this is just what it is. This is the reality. I'm not necessarily okay with it, but I can accept it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in the 20 years I have in my grief process, I came up with rituals that I do. I celebrate her death every year. I go to the beach put her ashes in the ocean. So I go to the beach every time. For the last 20 years, I've stood at the ocean, and on the moment that she died, 8:50 in the morning on May 3rd, and, I throw a rose into the water. I mean, I used to give her, roses. I used to send a rose to school on Valentine's Day since she was in pre-K. And I would just make sure she got this rose. So now I go and I get a rose from and I put a rose in the ocean on Valentine's Day.
Wait,
we always have dinner on her birthday every year. Yeah. 20 years we have dinner, we celebrate. We got to keep moving.
That's what I was really thinking was I hope you do the birthday thing. That's her life,
Absolutely,
celebrate the life,
the birthday thing. The death thing, has not been a hard. It's really a celebration at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, we would go out to dinner. We go out to dinner every night, every May 3rd. And 10 years ago, we were at the restaurant and there were 20 people in the room. And I was there and we were all having dinner and everybody's having drinks. We're just it wasn't sad sitting around crying in our beer. It was, hey, we're celebrating. And I looked around the room and I realized 3/4 of the people in this room never met her. Because my son got married and my other sons got married and they had children. And it was and in a way that was very comforting to me. It's you know what, it's expanding. She isn't being forgotten. She's being included in this whole, it's part, this is what we do. Now they know, they call me up, what's for dinner? May 2nd. What are we having for dinner?
Yep.
So
that's what I was saying with this too. It's, as long as we remember her, she's still alive. Right.
That's absolutely true. There was a time when she first died, there were a lot of tears.
Sure.
A lot of tears. And I dreaded them. And I was in school and I didn't want to cry. And now 20 years later, I basically at least tear up every day in thinking about her. And I got to tell you, I cherish my tears.
Yeah.
I cherish them. They're like diamonds because it just means that I still care and she's still in my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's great. That's great.
All right.
It's a good relief too, right?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's like, I tell you what, I'm a drama teacher. So it really helped me get in touch with my feelings,
Nice. Yeah. I got a question real quick. What is that thing behind you?
Oh, that's I'm a puppeteer,
Okay.
and I teach puppetry in my drama classes. That's my mannequin. That's my
That's great.
That's my orangutan mannequin. What do you call it? Marionette.
Okay. I was kept looking at that. I'm going like, that's kind of creepy. That's
It is kind of creepy. My wife hates it. Every time she opens the door to get me for dinner, she gives a little
Yeah, absolutely. And we have one more eulogy. I have been reflecting on life, on the gift of Chelsea's life, a gift of beauty, mystery, and above all, of miracles. A gift of beauty because of her soul, the Ruha, the breath of God, which is the divine and which transcends the here and now. A gift of mystery because she and we are held together in the divine embrace of love, which Thomas Aquinas says is the first gift, and whatever else is given us becomes a gift only through love, and her and our love transcends the here and now. A gift of miracles because her life and ours is a composite of countless other lives and loves, generating more life and deeper love, and that transcends the here and now. Chelsea's gift of life has touched each of us in luminous ways. We know that Chelsea illuminated her great Graham's life, my mother, from their having a tea party using Mom's 60-year-old wedding gift tea service, because nothing was too good for Chelsea, to dressing up in great Graham's best dress, high heels, jewelry cascading, and topped with one of Mom's exotic hats, or her favorite activity, standing on a chair to reach the sink, elbow deep in suds, in an oversized apron, washing dishes. Chelsea was best friends with her great Graham, a kind of splendid, flaming light in her life, as Chelsea has illuminated all our lives. And if it's true that we are, as the poet says, made from the stuff of stars, Chelsea now shines in new and amazing ways for us in miracles of grace. So let us expect miracles. The miracles that enable us to believe that life is eternal and love is immortal and death is a horizon, and a horizon is nothing save the limit of our sight. Miracles that enable us to pray. There's a story in the book of Genesis, the details of which are unimportant to us today, but it is about two brothers, one wronged by the other, and when they meet years later on the battlefield, the rogue brother throws himself at the feet of the other, terrified. The brother who is wronged reaches down and pulls his brother to his feet, asking why he is acting this way. The reply is fear, and the wronged brother says, "Do you not know that for me, to look upon your face is to look upon the face of God?" Chelsea, for us now, transcends the here and now. She is the face of God for us because we love her. She is the love of God, the goodness, the beauty, the mystery, the miracle, the light of God for us. The mystics have a saying, per crucem ad lucem, through the cross, through suffering to the light. The Easter season readings in our Catholic Masses this week from the Christian scriptures quote Jesus promising his loved ones as he leaves them, "I am with you always, even to the end of time." And in yesterday's readings, "You are sad now, but I shall see you again, and your hearts will be full of joy, and that joy no one will take from you. Per crucem ad lucem, through suffering to the light." Chip, Debbie, Michael, you have shared with us the beauty, the mystery, the miracle of Chelsea, and that gift transcends the here and now, and we are eternally grateful as we pray. Lift us up, strong and gentle God, that we may see beyond the horizon, that we may see in each happening an encounter with the mystery of God, that we may see in each other a revelation of the love of God, that each place and space may be for us a sanctuary of the holiness of God. For in doing this, we are sharing the gift of Chelsea's life. We love you, Chelsea. Hey, I want to thank everybody. And I want to thank you again for coming on here. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, I want to again thank everybody for tuning into another episode of High While Clean. And as I always like to say, keep getting high, but let's do it clean. I'll see you soon.
Open up your eyes. The world is bright. Something to give. Help you be happy and live. Darkness